Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
The scent of sandalwood and the clinking of ice against glass were the soundtrack to my new life. Brian's life. My husband's life. It had only been 3 months since we'd said I do. A whirlwind of white lace and champagne toasts, and yet I felt like I was performing a role, playing the part of the devoted wife. It wasn't that Brian was a bad man, not at all. He was kind, successful, and undeniably handsome in that distinguished silver at the temples kind of way. He provided security, a comfortable home, and a respectable name. Everything a woman was supposed to want. Except my heart, that traitorous organ, beat a different rhythm. It thrummed, a frantic, insistent drum for someone else. Someone who lived under the same roof, yet felt worlds away. It started subtly, a mere ripple in the placid waters of my carefully constructed reality. Brian's son, Ethan. He was 28, a sculptor with hands that seemed to coax life from clay and stone, and a body that was a testament to his dedication to his craft. Brian had always been more of a desk man, his physique softened by long hours and good living. Ethan, however, was all lean muscle, sculpted by relentless hours in his studio and a passion for physical exertion. The first time I truly really saw him, was a few weeks ago. I'd been looking for Brian, a file I suspected he'd left on his desk. The house was quiet, the late afternoon sun slanting through the tall windows of the west wing. I heard a rhythmic thudding, a sound that drew me down the hallway towards the converted garage, Brian's son's personal sanctuary. The door was ajar, and a sliver of light spilled out. Curiosity, a dangerous companion, tugged me closer. I peeked through the gap, my breath catching in my throat. Ethan was there, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, a sight that stole the air from my lungs. He was shirtless, his skin glistening with a fine sheen of sweat. He was working out not with weights but with his own body. Pull-ups on a sturdy bar, each movement fluid, controlled. His back muscles rippled, a landscape of sculpted power. Then he moved to the floor, his abdomen tightening as he executed a series of powerful push-ups, his gaze focused, intense. He was utterly absorbed, a predator in his prime, unaware of my voyeuristic gaze. Before we dive into today's story, I just want to let you know this might actually be the last one I post here on YouTube. We're moving over to Patreon, where I can finally share all our stories without restrictions. 5 new ones every single week. For just $6 a month, you'll get full access to the kind of stories you love. Plus you can even tell me the type you want to hear next. So if you've been rocking with me from day one and you don't want to miss out, hit the link in the description and join us on Patreon. Love and secret stories. Alright, let's get into it. My heart hammered against my ribs, a panicked bird trapped in a cage. It wasn't just admiration. It was a primal, undeniable pull. His every flex, every bead of sweat that traced a path down his collarbone, sparked a fire within me that I hadn't felt in years. A fire that Brian, bless his steady heart, had never ignited. I backed away, my knees suddenly weak, and leaned against the cool plaster of the hallway wall. My mind, usually so carefully regulated, began to spin. A dangerous, thrilling thought took root. What if I could have that? Not him, not his heart, but his body. Just for a moment. Just to feel that raw, potent energy against me. The thought was scandalous, wicked, and utterly captivating. It was a secret I hugged to myself, a forbidden fruit I began to crave with an intensity that surprised and frightened me. I started to engineer encounters. Little glances, lingering stares when Brian wasn't looking. I'd find excuses to be in the parts of the house where he might be. The kitchen, for a late-night glass of water. The garden, admiring Brian's prize-winning roses, while keeping an ear out for Ethan's movements. I learned his routines. He'd often work out in the late afternoon, just as the shadows began to lengthen. I'd find myself drawn to the periphery, a silent observer. I'd pretend to be engrossed in a book, my eyes occasionally flicking towards the open door of his studio, catching glimpses of his powerful form. The way his muscles bunched under his skin as he stretched, the arc of his spine as he bent. Each stolen moment was a jolt of illicit pleasure. One evening, Brian was away on a business trip. The house felt cavernous, filled with a silence that screamed opportunity. The scent of sandalwood was absent, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant murmur of the city. Ethan was in his studio. I could hear the faint clang of metal. My hands trembled as I poured myself a glass of wine, the ruby liquid blurring through my slightly unsteady focus. I walked not towards the studio, but towards the back terrace, the one that overlooked the sprawling lawn. It was cooler outside, the night air carrying the scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. I sat on one of the wrought-iron chairs, the wine cool on my tongue. I could still hear the muffled sounds from Ethan's studio. Wet, effort, the raw, physical reality of him. A boldness I didn't recognize surged through me. I stood up and walked not directly to him, but to the edge of the terrace, where I could see the open doors to his studio more clearly. He was back on the pull-up bar. His back was to me, but I could see the defined curve of his shoulders, the taut lines of his arms. He grunted with exertion, a sound that sent a shiver down my spine. Then he lowered himself to the floor. He was doing sit-ups now, his chest rising and falling with each controlled movement. The moonlight, now a pale silver, caught the contours of his abdomen, the sharp definition of his obliques. My breath hitched. I wanted to touch him. I wanted to feel that hard muscle under my fingertips. The desire was so potent, so overwhelming, it felt like a physical ache. My mind, that traitorous architect of my downfall, began to weave its web. I needed a reason, a plausible, innocent reason to be there, to be close to him. I stood and walked deliberately towards the studio, my heels clicking softly on the stone path. I stopped just outside the doorway, feigning a casual interest. "Ethan," I called out, my voice a little huskier than I intended. He froze, his body tensing. He looked up, his eyes dark and intense, meeting mine. The question in them was unspoken but clear. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, hello, Sarah," he said, his voice a low rumble. He sat up, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. His gaze swept over me, lingering for a moment on my décolletage, a subtle appreciation that made my skin prickle. That was the first sign. He saw me not just as Brian's wife, but as a woman. "I was just enjoying the night air," I lied, my voice a little too high. "It's so peaceful out here." "It is," he agreed, his eyes still holding mine. He didn't stand, didn't make any move to cover himself. He seemed unconcerned by his state of undress, comfortable in his own skin. And that, more than anything, was intoxicating. I took a step closer, my gaze drifting down his torso. The smooth expanse of his skin, the subtle veins that pulsed just beneath the surface. "You're very dedicated to your fitness," I said, the words sounding ridiculous even to my own ears. A slow smile spread across his lips, a dangerous, knowing curve. "It's what I do," he said, his gaze flicking back to my face. He knew. He had to know that I wasn't here for the night air. "It's impressive," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I was lost in the physical details of him. The way his chest rose and fell, the slight twitch of a muscle in his thigh. He stood then, slowly, deliberately. He was taller than I remembered, his presence filling the space between us. He didn't say anything, just watched me, his dark eyes searching mine. The air crackled with unspoken tension. This was it. The precipice. Can I get you something?" I asked, my mind grasping for any excuse. Water. A towel. He took a step towards me, closing the distance until I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. The scent of his exertion, a musky, masculine aroma, filled my senses. It was raw, primal, and incredibly arousing. If you're loving this kind of story, come join me on Patreon, Love and Secret Stories. That's where I'll be posting all the new ones from now on. No, Sarah, he said, his voice deeper now, a husky murmur. He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a stray strand of hair from my cheek. The contact sent a jolt through me, electric and consuming. I don't think I need anything. His thumb traced the line of my jaw, his touch light but searing. My breath hitched. My heart was a runaway train, no brakes, no control. Ethan, I breathed, my voice a plea and a surrender. His eyes darkened, a primal hunger kindled within them. He leaned in, his gaze fixed on my lips. I closed my eyes, expecting a kiss. But he didn't kiss me. Instead, his hand moved lower to the delicate curve of my collarbone, his thumb caressing the pulse that hammered there. He leaned closer, his lips brushing against my ear. Brian's wife, he whispered, the words a dangerous caress. This is a very bad idea. He was right. It was a terrible, reckless, potentially devastating idea. But in that moment, with his scent surrounding me, his touch igniting my skin, the word bad had never sounded so good. My head swam. I opened my eyes and met his gaze. I didn't pull away. Couldn't. I tilted my head back, offering him more of my neck, a silent invitation. He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then his lips found the sensitive skin just below my ear. Soft moan escaped me. His lips were firm, warm, sending waves of heat through my entire body. He traced the line of my jaw again, then moved to my lips. This time he kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a claiming, a hungry exploration. His mouth was firm, demanding, and I met him with an equal fervor. My hands, as if guided by an unseen force, found their way to his chest, feeling the hard planes of muscle beneath my palms. The sweat on his skin was slick and warm. He groaned, a deep, guttural sound, and his arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer. I could feel the heat and hardness of him pressing against me, a stark contrast to Brian's softer, more yielding body. It was a different kind of pleasure, a sharp, intense thrill that made my head spin. He broke the kiss, his forehead resting against mine. We were both breathing heavily, our bodies humming with a shared, illicit energy. "We can't," he whispered, his voice rough. "I know," I whispered back, but my body was already betraying my words. I leaned into him, my hand sliding up his chest, my fingers grazing the hard wall of his pectoral muscle. His eyes, dark and turbulent, searched mine. "You're married, Sarah." "And you're my stepson," I countered, the words tasting like ashes and desire. "This is madness." "Then why are you here?" he asked, his voice a low challenge. I didn't have an answer, not one that made any sense. I only knew the raw, undeniable pull, the intoxicating scent of his skin, the feel of him against me. It was a drug and I was addicted. He kissed me again, deeper this time, more possessive. His hands moved down my back, pulling me flush against him. I moaned into his mouth, my body arching into his. I felt the hard ridge of his arousal against my stomach, and a desperate need surged through me. His hand slid from my back down to the curve of my hip, then lower to the hem of my dress. He hesitated, his fingers finding the lace of my panties. I whimpered, my body trembling. "Sarah," he breathed, his voice strained. "This is too much." But his touch was an undeniable answer. He slipped his fingers beneath the lace, his thumb finding the wet heat between my legs. I gasped, my body clenching around his touch. He was careful, deliberate, yet intensely effective. My breath came in ragged gasps. He watched my face, his eyes dark with a mixture of desire and confusion. He saw the pleasure I was trying to hide, the surrender I was experiencing. "You want this," he stated, his voice a husky rumble. It wasn't a question. I could only nod, my eyes squeezed shut. The world had narrowed to this single point of sensation, this intense, forbidden pleasure. Don't forget we're now on Patreon. $6 a month for full access to all the juicy stories I can't post here. He lowered me gently onto a plush rug in the center of his studio, the scent of canvas and clay filling the air. He knelt over me, his gaze roaming my body, a silent awe in his eyes. He paused at my dress, his fingers teasing the fabric. "Brian's wife," he murmured again, but this time it was with a different inflection. Not a warning, but a statement of desire. He slowly eased the fabric up my thighs, revealing the pale skin of my legs. I lay there, exposed, vulnerable, yet burning with a feverish anticipation. He trailed his fingers up my legs, his touch sending shivers through me. He paused at my panties, his gaze a soft caress. Then, with a final lingering touch, he pulled the fabric away. I gasped as the cool air hit my skin, but his mouth was there, hot and demanding, replacing the touch of his fingers. The world tilted. My body became a canvas for his pleasure, and his pleasure became mine. He explored me with his mouth, driving me higher and higher, until I thought I would shatter. Each touch, each taste, was a revelation, a raw, unadulterated ecstasy. I cried out his name, a desperate plea, a surrender. When it was over, when my body finally found its tempestuous release, I lay trembling, my mind a hazy fog of satisfaction and shame. He lay beside me, his arms still around me, his breathing slowly evening out. "I shouldn't have," he whispered into my hair, his voice thick with regret. "I know," I whispered back, my voice raw. The weight of what we had done settled over me, heavy and suffocating. We lay there for a long time, the silence broken only by the chirping of crickets outside and the frantic beating of my own heart. The scent of sandalwood was a phantom presence, a reminder of the life I was so carelessly dismantling. As the first hint of dawn began to paint the sky, I knew I had to leave. I disengaged myself from his arms, the movement a painful farewell. He watched me, his eyes filled with a complex mixture of desire, regret, and something that looked like dawning despair. I dressed quickly, my hands still shaking. I didn't look at him. Couldn't. "Sarah," he called out, his voice a low plea. I turned at the doorway, my heart lodged somewhere in my throat. He was sitting up now, his body still slick with sweat, his eyes raw and exposed. "What now?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't have an answer. The thrill was gone, replaced by a cold, hard knot of dread. I had indulged my deepest, most forbidden desires, and in doing so, I had stepped onto a path from which there was no easy return. I had sought only his body, a fleeting escape from the quiet dissatisfaction of my marriage. But in the heat of that moment, something far more dangerous had been ignited. Secret, betrayal, and a terrifying, unraveling truth that threatened to consume us all. I walked out of his studio, leaving him in the dim light, and stepped back into the life I had so carelessly jeopardized. The sandalwood scent was a distant memory, replaced by the bitter tang of my own reckless abandon. The performance had just begun, and the audience was about to awaken. And that's it for today's story. If you've been enjoying my content, please know this might be the last one I post here. We're moving everything over to Patreon, Love and Secret Stories, where you'll get 5 exclusive stories every week for just $6 a month. You can even tell me what kind of story you want next. So if you don't want to miss out, the link's in the description. I'll see you there.